All right, guys, our first vocabulary term you see up there is a state. A state is, according to dictionary.com, a nation or territory considered as an organized political community under one government. A simple way to say this would be a state is an area of land with borders under one government. An area of land with borders under one government. So, we see here the Babylonian Empire on the bottom. An empire is a state. It has borders. It's under the rule of one government, under emperor. That is a state. So is Egypt, right over here in the Nile River. Up on top, we see a modern-day country of Mongolia with their capital, Ulaanbaatar. Fun to say. This is also a state because it's one land with borders under one government. So a country can be a state, an empire can be a state, and a state like Minnesota is a state. So, they have the same laws, same rules. Sometimes they'll have the same religion. Many times they'll have the same language or languages. Will be in the state. So now you may turn and talk with your partner. And what do you think is the historical significance of a state? I'll add on here historical significance. Pretty much all the empires we study, all the countries we study, are states. This is how areas will be organized in history for all that we study. The Zulus, who we'll study much later on in Africa, form a state. So do the Mongols. So do the Spanish. And again, historically significant because they'll often have common religions, common languages. States will unify people or bring people together in one border. But they also separate people. Because one state might be against another state. It could cause conflict and fighting. And like I heard a student up here say, sometimes states will form alliances with other states. They'll be allies or they'll work with them. Maybe they'll trade together. That can also happen. All right, so here's what you can do now. We have historical significance. All right, next word is hierarchy. Hierarchy. Wait a minute, this one's been mentioned once in class already and now again. What does that mean? It's very important. It's going to come up over and over again in history. Hierarchy is, according again to dictionary.com, a system or organization in which people or groups are ranked, one above the other according to their status or authority. So basically, we have different levels of people. Or what was that C word? That was our last chapter vocab word. Anybody remember? Say it out loud. Yeah, it's like classes. Hierarchy will have different classes of people at different levels. On the top, they're very powerful. Like the Pharaoh, who's basically seen as a king. Yes, a king of God, more than a king of God. And all the way down the bottom, we have our farmers and slaves, who are the very lowest and have very few rights. And this is our hierarchy. So hierarchy is pretty much ranking people from top to bottom based on importance in society, having different classes. Does this exist today still? Could you say there's a hierarchy in American society? Possibly by jobs. Possibly by how much money you make. Some would argue there's a hierarchy based on race. Some would argue there isn't. But there is still a hierarchy in many societies today. So, look at this right now. And again, turn and talk with your partner. And why will this be significant or important in history that there's hierarchies? Go ahead. 0, Let me call on, oh, we're on video now, so let me call on unnamed student in the back, right here. You may stand up. And what did you say for historical significance, unnamed student? Okay, very good. Let's keep going with unnamed student right over here. You may stand up, unnamed student. And what do you think?
It invites people into different classes.
Could this cause problems?
Yes.
Could this cause rebellions?
Yes.
Ah, so there will be rebellions in history. There will be revolts in history. But also, we will not have equality. Hunters and gatherers had that at least, but we don't have that today. I would definitely argue we are not equal. I think there is a hierarchy in our society today. Our third and last word for today, we'll do 2 more tomorrow, is diffusion. Diffusion simply is the spreading of something more widely. When something spreads more widely. Diffusion is something spreading. This summer, there was diffusion of one type of music, especially one song. I would be willing to bet a year ago, people in China did not know what reggaeton was. I'd be willing to bet most people in America, outside of heavily Latino populations, didn't know what reggaeton was. Then the song Despacito came out. Did it diffuse? How far did the song Despacito diffuse to? The world. It is now the most viewed YouTube video, period. The funny thing is, when it passed, was that guy from Korea a few years ago.
Psy?
Yeah, Psy, who made Gangnam Style, I think it was called. I might be messing that up. That also diffused with K-pop. And many people suddenly knew what K-pop was like 5-6 years ago. Does that make sense? So diffusion is when something spreads. And the funny thing is, many people now think like reggaeton's something new. And it's like, no, it's been around for like 20 years. Like, many people are like, oh, Daddy Yankee, he's that new musician. It's like, no, Gasolina came out like 12 years ago, you know. But if you're not in a Latino community or Spanish-speaking community, you probably don't know that. Does that make sense? So diffusion is the spreading. Foods can diffuse. Tacos have diffused pretty well, right? Although, you ever eat tacos at like, you know, a non-Mexican's house or a white person's house, they're probably going to be hard shell and have lettuce on them, and you're like, what the? This is not a taco. No self-respecting Mexican would call that a taco. Does that make sense? So, diffusion, what's significant about diffusion is this. Ideas can spread. Religions can spread. Language can spread. Food can spread. But what happens as it spreads?
They change.
It changes. It changes to where it goes. Go ahead.
So it's like after one country, like let's say country invented it first, like writing, it spreads out, and then people, like I like to say, like remix it.
Yes.
And then they like change it into their own like languages, and then they make their own symbols and stuff like that.
And possibly to connect that back to our Despacito example, exactly like you're saying, the version that got real popular had Justin Bieber on it, and it was remixed and changed a little bit, wasn't it? Yeah. Tacos have diffused, but they've also changed to where like Mexicans are like, this is not a pinche taco. This is. Does that make sense? I wasn't supposed to swear. Anyway, all right. So, does this make sense? Yeah. So diffusion is a spreading. This picture is showing Buddhism, which we'll talk about, and Buddhism spreads. Christianity will spread. Many religions, languages spread. But also as they spread, things will change. Okay? That is diffusion. Very historically significant because our world never stays the same. Things are constantly spreading and changing throughout world history. You may now quickly draw a picture of that.